Hello and welcome. Tonight, security operatives rescue victims of a kidnap incident at Zuma 1 area in the Buari Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory. Ogun, Nasarawa and Plateau State governors celebrate their victories at the Supreme Court with commitments to do more for their states. Fire guts 10-story Mandela's building on Central Business District in Lagos Island, destroying items and property worth several millions of naira. And Hamas-run health ministry says more than 25,000 people have now been killed in Gaza as Israel's assault escalates. We begin from the Federal Capital Territory, where 5 of the 6 sisters of the Al-Qadriya family who were kidnapped by bandits in the Buari area of Abuja have regained their freedom on Saturday night. The girls and some other kidnapped victims were rescued by security operatives on Saturday night and have since been reunited with their family. The 6 sisters were taken hostage in the Abuja suburb of Buari along with their father, Mansour Al-Qadriya, who was later released to raise ransom. Unfortunately, one of the sisters, 21-year-old Nabia, a final-year university student, was later killed as a warning that the huge ransom be paid. The Commissioner of Police FCT Command, Haruna Garba, in a statement reiterates the command's commitment to sustaining the robust security deployment in the area and other parts of the territory for the utmost maintenance of peace for all and sundry. In another development, police operatives attached to Ido Divisional Headquarters in the FCT the day rescued another kidnapped victim, one Suleiman Sabo, from kidnappers in Sauka along Airport Road in Abuja. In the rescue operation, one Mohammed Abel, aged 32, from Kogi State, was apprehended, while one large rifle with 10 rounds of live ammunition was also recovered from him. Meanwhile, airstrikes by the air component of Operation Whirl Punch on Tuesday, January the 18th this year, has neutralized a well-known terrorist and kidnapped kingpin, popularly known as Janari, and several members of his syndicate. That's according to a statement from the media office of the Nigerian Air Force, which states that Janari and his cohorts were responsible for several attacks and abductions within Kaduna State, as well as along the Abuja-Kaduna Highway. Now, according to that statement, the strikes were authorized after Janari and his gang were sighted at a location near Gadar Katako in Igabi local government area of Kaduna, where intelligence revealed they were massing up for a likely attack or kidnapping of civilians. The Air Force says similar airstrikes were also carried out on January the 20th this year on confirmed terrorist and kidnapper hideouts near Chukuba in Niger State with various degrees of success. Staying with security, the Emir of Dutse, Alhaji Hamim Nuhu, is calling for the establishment of an Air Force base in Jigawa State to improve security in the northwest region. The Emir stated this during the laying of the foundation for the construction of 1,500 housing units in the state. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, reports.
Traditional leaders, government officials, including the Minister of Defense, are in Dutse to witness the foundation laying ceremony for the construction of 1,500 housing units across the state. The project is part of the state governor's agenda to reduce housing deficit across Jigawa State in northwest Nigeria.
This housing project will be executed in 5 emirate headquarters and 3 other urban towns, specifically in Dutse, Hadeja, Kazaure, Gumel, Ringim, Barbara, Kafin Hausa, and Birnin Kudu. At this point, I wish to clarify that the numbers allocated to each urban town are simply the first planning figures.
The Emir of Dutse takes advantage of the occasion to call for the establishment of an Air Force base in Dutse to improve security in the northwest region.
Honorable Minister, we have 2 airports in the state, one in Dutse and the other one in Hadeja. This is an opportunity for the establishment of an Air Force base which shall improve security in the region. So we are pleading with you to make this a reality.
On his part, the Minister of Defense expresses optimism that the present administration will not fail the people.
During the campaign, I told you that he's honest, he's straightforward, he's active, and he will deliver. And that is what he is doing.
The unveiling of 1,500 new homes in Jigawa, coupled with the Emir's plea for an Air Force base, symbolizes a bold stride in mitigating the housing shortage in the state, in addition to enhancing security across the northwest region. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Governor Abdullahi Sule has sued for peace in the state. That's, of course, Nasarawa State, following the Supreme Court verdict that affirmed his victory. He also promised improved security in Nasarawa as he walks towards harnessing the prospects of the state. He made the remarks while addressing supporters who welcomed him back to Nasarawa State. Our correspondent Halima Gayam reports.
Governor Abdullahi Sule returns to the state after his affirmation by the Apex Court as the governor of Nasarawa State. He was received by a mammoth crowd of supporters of the All Progressives Congress and all the residents. He moves around Lafayette, the state capital, in a show of appreciation for the support of the people. Some members of the party share what his victory means to the people and the state.
We enjoy peace in Nasarawa because of His Excellency. We have enjoyed massive development in Nasarawa because of His Excellency. And for us, we'll continue to support him, we'll continue to wish him well, and we'll continue to ensure that Nasarawa State move forward as a state.
It means peace to Nasarawa State people. It means, democracy at work to Nasarawa State people. It means that we have promising good years, ahead.
For the party leadership of the state and former governors, it's a collective victory that requires all hands to be on deck for the development of the state.
Election is over. Litigation is over. What we are going to focus on is development.
This victory is not for ASLA alone. It's for all of us because it has given us opportunity to have peace, stability, and development.
All well-meaning citizens of Nasarawa State will rally round the administration of Engineer Sule, the platform of APC, to ensure that the dividends of democracy, which he has started with the first term to deliver to the Nasarawa State, will be enhanced.
Governor Sule insists that the state is above the ambition of any individual, just as he sues for calm and peace.
We'll do the best we can as the Chief Security Officer of your state to work with the very vigilant and very vibrant security agencies that we have to keep our state as safe as possible.
As the people celebrate the end of the litigation to determine the governor of the state, they anticipate the continuation of the provision of dividends of democracy from the All Progressives Congress. Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
Another governor that also had his election affirmed by the Supreme Court is Caleb Mutfwang of Plateau State, and is restating his determination to serve the people of the state diligently. Now, Governor Mutfwang made the pledge in the state capital of Jos during a Christian interdenominational Thanksgiving service in honor of his victory at the polls and the affirmation of his election at the Supreme Court.
Plateau citizens from different Christian denominations within and outside the state converge on Wangpam Township Stadium in Jos to express gratitude to God for Governor Caleb Mutfwang's election victory and the Supreme Court judgments which went in his favor. Among the dignitaries at the service are the former governor of the state, Jonah Jang, his counterpart from Adamawa, Bonnie Haruna, and former military administrator, retired Major General Lawrence Onoja. In his exhortation, The president of Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, Bishop Waleoke, identifies the significance of Thanksgiving.
I want us to recognize the significance of today. I said at the beginning that this is the beginning of healing, victories, but this is the beginning of wholeness. This is wholeness, restoration. Everything that Plateau has lost shall be fully restored.
Goodwill messages from political associates point to concerns on insecurity and issues of development in the Middle Belt.
When you seek strength in the Lord, it means you believe in the Lord. If you don't believe, you don't get any response. But because he believed, the Lord responded.
Plateau, like my state Benue, others, particularly in Nigeria's Middle Belt, have suffered cases of injustice. And from the hands of these evil attackers, I take this opportunity to commiserate with the governor and the good people of Plateau State over the recent killings of innocent citizens through the condemnation on unwarranted and unprovoked attacks. We pray for divine comfort for families of the victims.
In appreciation for the large turnout and support of the people, the governor expresses determination to redouble his efforts in service to the state.
We want to say to the Lord God Almighty, Lord, we thank you. Thank you also, the people of Plateau State, that you agreed with God to bring us to this place of honor. God who brought us this way and this far, he will never fail us nor abandon us. He will provide us with the means to satisfy your needs.
The Thanksgiving service is characterized by prayers for peace in Plateau State and the country, as well as songs, ministration from various gospel artists.
Tens of shops and business offices at the Madras Plaza and Mandela's building on Lagos Island have been gutted by fire. Minutes after the inferno, some traders stormed the place and were captured trying to salvage some of their goods and other valuables. Firefighters have been facing a tough time putting out the fire, but according to the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the fire incident at the warehouse in Mandela's building has been curtailed by the State Fire Service. He also said that investigations into the incident have already commenced. The fire outbreaks are not new in the market. Most of the incidents have been blamed on electrical surges and poor market structures, which make it easy for the fire to spread. State officials, firefighters and other first responders, including security personnel, are present at the scene of the incident and still assessing the cause of the inferno.
A warehouse of 10-story building, about 10-story building, and the fire emanated from first floor, but right now it's at 7th floor. We learned that a worker came here to work this morning because they wanted to do illegal duty, illegal job of extraction and partitioning. They were inside building doing construction. That was what led to the fire. But unfortunately, they couldn't control the fire, which now emanated from where is the first floor to the 7th floor right now. But right now, it is under control.
The positions or the layout of this place has never been in this form, even though because of the fact that if you look at the surrounding buildings, there is a lot of multiple extensions that have taken over the access roads to every other place in the case there is a fire incident. So for me, coming here today and seeing the multiple extensions, as you can see around all over, it baffles me.
In part two, after the break, we'll have more on the Supreme Court judgment celebration by Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, plus Lagos bans usage of styrofoam and other single-use plastics with immediate effect over environmental issues. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. Security operatives rescue victims of a kidnap incident at Zuma 1 area in the Buari Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory. Ogun, Nasarawa and Plateau State governors celebrate their victories at the Supreme Court with commitments to do more for their states. Fire guts 10-story Mandela's building on Central Business District in Lagos Island, destroying items and property worth several millions of naira. And Hamas-run health ministry says more than 25,000 people have now been killed in Gaza as Israel assault escalates. In Kogi State, Governor Dapo Abiodun has also held a special Thanksgiving service commemorating his victory at the Supreme Court. At the special church service held at the St. James Anglican Church in the Ikenne local government area of the state, the governor appreciated residents for their support and understanding. He, however, seized the occasion to promise more and improved infrastructure in Kogi State. The procession to the St. James Anglican Church Ikperu in the Ikenne area of Kogi State signals the start of the Thanksgiving service by Governor Dapo Abiodun. Days after his victory at the Supreme Court, where his win at the governorship election has been challenged, he chooses to thank God for the victory, which he describes as the needed energy to do more. The governor, his wife, the deputy governor, the speaker of the State Assembly and other leaders across the state join in the celebratory mood.
So far, we have demonstrated resilience as one of the two most resilient states in Nigeria. We have achieved significant economic improvement and we've been adjudged as the most improved economy in Nigeria.
Although the legal battle is over, there's a charge for Governor Dapo Abiodun to improve the frontier of development across the state.
My brother, government is a continuum. It is not about individuals. It is about the people we are serving. Let us put aside hatred, bitterness, and allow the love for the people who voted us into politics and into power. Let the love for the people be uppermost to your hearts.
The governor commits to making the over 3 years he has left to set the state as a shining example among his contemporaries.
This means we can afford to build more roads, more houses, we can afford to build more schools, we can afford to continue to do some of these people-oriented infrastructure projects.
Beyond his plans for the state, Governor Abiodun asked for prayers to help him succeed with all the programs he has listed for the Gateway State. The Lagos State government has announced a ban on the usage and distribution of Styrofoam and other single-use plastics in the state with immediate effect. Now, according to the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, the decision was reached following the menace which the single-use plastics, especially the non-biodegradable Styrofoam, was causing on the environment. It says most drainage channels in Lagos State are daily clogged up by Styrofoam through its indiscriminate distribution and usage, despite the regular cleaning and evacuation of the drains with humongous amounts. He adds that the larger chunk of littering across major roads and markets, which Loma contends with daily, is made up of Styrofoams. He asked two agencies to clamp down on all the production companies and distribution outlets for Styrofoam in the state to prevent further distribution. Every year, the World Economic Forum annual meeting brings together top decision makers from government, business, and, of course, civil society to address major global issues and priorities for the year ahead. Some stakeholders believe that this year's meeting may have ended with more questions than answers. For instance, the issues of rebuilding trust amid uncertainty and rapid change persists. How will fractured diplomatic relations lead to improved global security and cooperation? Is there an easy way to implement strategy for nature, climate, and energy? Well, Babajide Oguso, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television data analyst, is right here to share more insights. You're welcome again, Babajide.
Good evening, Ayatunde.
All right, so let's get into it. Now, is there a way to measure the value that Nigeria gets from attending the, events such as this? I mean, the annual World Economic Forum. Let's start with that.
There is no easy way, Ayo. There's no easy way to measure the value Nigeria gets out of attending the World Economic Forum every year at Davos. But there's something that we can clearly understand, even though we can't find out how much value Nigeria gets. But what we can understand tonight is how important is the World Economic Forum to Nigeria. And I'd like to explain in just about a minute by using what's in front of us. This year, the World Economic Forum happened between January 15th and 19th. So for 1 minute, I would like you to imagine if Nigeria, represented here during this same period, were hosting the African Economic Forum and other African countries were coming to Nigeria because Nigeria was the host of the African Economic Forum. What will Nigeria do? What's the probability that Nigeria will either, one, stay to welcome other African countries, or two, will the Nigerian government japa to the World Economic Forum? Ayotunde, we'll go into the numbers briefly, but looking at the numbers, if Nigeria were even hosting the African Economic Forum at this same period, the likelihood is that the Nigerian government will abandon its own African Economic Forum and attend the World Economic Forum. What I mean is, looking at our numbers, most recent numbers, Nigeria's annual trade, 49 trillion naira. However, 97% of that number, you heard me right, 97% of Nigeria's trade with the world is with Europeans, Asians, and Americans. In other words, Nigeria doesn't do significant trade, even with its African brothers. So the World Economic Forum for Nigeria is more important than an African Economic Forum. Let's take a look at these numbers. The last full year numbers, 2022, 49 trillion naira worth of trade. However, 41% of that trade with Europe, 38% of that trade with Asia, 13% of that trade with America, only 7% of that trade with Africa. Look at what happened 2 years ago. It was even 9%. Going by these numbers, Ayotunde, if Nigeria continues on this trajectory, by 2027, less than 5% of Nigeria's trade will be with Africa. So the question we need to really ask ourselves is, does Nigeria even believe in Nigeria? That's the focus. We clearly understand why the World Economic Forum is important to Nigeria, because that is where Nigeria does its trade with. But looking at the other side, we need to now start asking ourselves, does Nigeria believe in Nigeria? Does Nigeria believe in Africa?
So which brings me to the next question. What next for Nigeria with respect to growth and development now that WEF has already ended?
So for a lot of years, Nigeria has focused on growing. The president in his speech is talking about 3.76% minimum growth rate. The question economists are asking now is, it's not only about the speed of growth, it's about the quality of growth. In simple terms, how inclusive is your growth? And the United Nations provides us with some metrics to look at where does Nigeria stand with reference to inclusiveness of growth. And if we take a look at the numbers in front of us, especially if we benchmark those numbers with the sort of performance and results other similar nations that we want to compete with, Brazil, Russia, India, on a score out of 100, the United Nations says the United Kingdom scores 93.6 out of 100, the US 88.5. Look at where we fall. We are significantly below countries we compare ourselves with, 14.5 out of 100 on living condition assessment score by the United Nations. And so these are the sort of metrics the president needs to also keep an eye on, not just only looking at how fast we're growing. We need to look at what is the quality of these growth. And right now, the United Nations is saying our growth lacks quality.
Now, Babajide, big tech and, of course, AI, artificial intelligence, are expected to play major roles, this year as far as a global economy or global, let's put it that way, is concerned. But how much do you think Nigeria is ready to compete? Or how are we really ready to compete in that sphere?
Big tech, artificial intelligence, that is the future of the world. But what Nigeria needs to first understand is there are two places that will point to us how prepared we are: our educational system and our industries. So yes, the world is talking about artificial intelligence and maximizing those opportunities. What Nigeria needs to first do is to maximize the opportunities of its human intelligence. Because looking at our educational and industrial sectors, we can't compete on the global scale. And these are not Babajide Ogunsanwo's words. Even the United Nations provides us metrics on how ready is Nigeria and the rest of the world on artificial intelligence. And if we take a careful look at how ready Nigeria is relative to the rest of the world, it provides us insights about how much speed the government needs to put into it. Frontier technology readiness, those were the exact words of the United Nations. It says the top 3 countries on that list, look at it: US, UK, Russia. Look at where Nigeria is, 32 out of a score of 100.
So we really have a lot of work to do. We really have a lot of work
clearly. So
to
we now understand why the World Economic Forum is important to Nigeria, how much belief does Nigeria even have in Nigeria and Africa, and clearly, what does the future like? The future for Nigeria right now, exploiting opportunities for our human intelligence.
And we'll leave it at that.
Back to the basics.
Thank you so much.
Basics.
Back to the basics. Thank you so much once again for your analysis on the News at 10. Still ahead on the News at 10. Nigerian Guild of Editors commend Justice Rita Ophelia Jumogobia for nullifying broadcasting codes, empowering National Broadcasting Commission to fine media houses. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The Nigerian Guild of Editors has commended Justice Rita Ophelia Jumogobia of the Federal High Court, Abuja, for declaring null and void some provisions of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, which authorizes the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, to impose fines on broadcast stations for alleged breaches of the code. In a statement by its Secretary General, Iyobosa Uwogaria, the Guild also criticized the reported invasion of ABN TV by a team of policemen to arrest a guest during a live program in Umuahia, Abia State recently. The editors reiterated their earlier resolution to engage President Bola Tinubu, the National Assembly, and other stakeholders over the NBC Act and the Broadcast Code of Conduct with the aim to amend and reform them to conform to the global best practices. Delivering judgment in a suit instituted by a pro-media rights group, that's the Media Rights Agenda, MRA, against the NBC on Friday, over the Commission's imposition of fines of 5 million naira each on 3 television stations in 2022 for allegedly undermining Nigeria's national security by broadcasting documentaries on banditry in Nigeria, Justice Ophelia Jumogobia held that the NBC, not being a court of law, acted above its powers by imposing such fines. The federal government is committed to seeing the execution of all its investments in the health sector this year. These are the words of the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Pate, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television. According to him, the federal government has christened the year 2024 as the year of implementation.
You have several years of unmet expectations, so people become cynical. Psychologically, when you say, I'm going to do ABC, people don't believe it because they've been conditioned, they've seen it, they've had it. That's why we're talking less and we're going to do more, and we're doing more. The reality of change will be what changes the minds of Nigerians. So that, okay, something is different here. In the next 3 to 6 months, you will see groundbreaking. I'm not saying just plans again, but groundbreaking of major infrastructural investments to expand diagnostic capabilities all over this country, at least 8 of them. and 2 major oncology centers. This has been discussed for many years, but not executed. But this year, we are saying that we will execute it because it's a year of doing. And in many of our teaching hospitals, we'll upgrade the physical infrastructure so that they look better. I went to some of the teaching hospitals that have been tens of years, and you look at the physical infrastructure, you will almost cry when you look at the quality of the physical infrastructure. Not clean, paints have deteriorated. Go to the National Hospital here in Abuja, 25-year-old hospital, meant to be a quaternary hospital. I was there. You see dilapidated, obsolete equipment since it was put 25 years ago. It's here in Abuja, where all of us live, where the physical infrastructure is deteriorated, if you've been there. Now, that is going to change, so that Nigeria can go into a health facility and see, look, this is looking better. So it's channeling the resources to the front ends. And by the end of the year, let's then reassess what has been done.
To catch the full interview with Professor Ali Pate, watch Newsnight on Monday by 9 p.m. on all of the channel's television platforms. Nigeria's inflation rate now stands at 28.9%, and that's according to figures from the National Bureau of Statistics for December 2023 Consumer Price Index. And since the removal of fuel subsidy, it's been a struggle for survival for many Nigerians as the cost of food items continues to surge. In this special report, our correspondent Kelly Agiga examines the issues as he speaks to traders, farmers, and an expert.
As of December 2023, Nigeria's headline inflation stood at 28.92% for prices of food items such as yam, rice, beans, tomatoes, pepper, onion, among others, consumed in many households across the country. On a year-on-year basis, the rate stands at 7.58 percentage points higher compared to December 2022, which was 21.34%. Our market survey at the Mile 12 International Market, which is the choice destination for perishable goods in Lagos, reveals that the prices of food items have indeed been on a steady rise. And the traders here blame the soaring food prices on insecurity and other factors.
Before our president, you removed the subsidy. That time, the yam is very cheap. Now, because of transporters, from Plateau, transporter, before yam you reach Mile 12, before you reach Mile 12 yam depot, you can pay the transporter 2.2 million naira.
We lose a lot because our people bought it from north at the higher price. And you come here, you can't become farish. Roads problem, and then it's full here, no buyers.
These latest statistics from the NBS peg food inflation at 33.93% on a year-on-year basis, which is 10.18 points higher compared to the rate recorded in December 2022. It's a situation that has compelled buyers to experience a hard time negotiating with traders.
There's a carton of turkey from Cotonou before with the exchange rates to compare the Nigerian money to their own money. Let's say everything will come out with 28,000 a carton. Now, as at now, we are buying almost 45,000. The difference is Very, very, very clear. So it's affecting everybody.
Nigeria is facing its highest inflation figures in nearly 2 decades. And this visit to some farmers at Agboiketu LCDA is to highlight the struggles of farmers who have been described over the years as the backbone of any society.
It has been a very hard time because, one, to now have seed are very scarce. We have to move from one place to the other where we normally have it before, but we don't have. So we were short of seed, and at the same time, our kind of laborers, we work manually. Formerly, it has been before 2020, when you bring a laborer to the farm, 1,900 plus what they take. By the time they go with 2,002, you are okay. And if you just pick like 4 laborers, then you still manage it. But today, it's 4,500, and they first ask for their food.
Globally, this chart shows the countries with the highest annual increases in consumer prices in 2022 and 2023. And while Nigeria's inflation figures may be far away from these countries, Mr. Johnson Chukwu is concerned about the impact of food inflation.
They have insecurity in the major food base of the country. I think that's the core of the problem we have with food inflation. If you look at the consistent increase in food prices, and if you look at those components of the food prices that are increasing, you look at things like tuber, yam, potato, these are produced locally. You look at things like fish, is produced locally largely. Of course, there is some little component of import-induced inflation coming from the likes of cereals, because we don't produce wheat, so it has a transmission effect on the price exchange rate, where the transmission effect on the price of wheat and then the price of bread. But if you exclude those imported food items, the major chunk of Nigerian food consumption is locally produced food, and most of these are produced within the major areas that are now subject to a lot of insecurity.
The monster called inflation continues to affect households, businesses, and different sectors of the economy. And institutions such as the World Bank add a global lens to Nigeria's economic crisis, revealing that entrenched inflation has pushed an additional 4 million Nigerians into poverty. And I wonder perhaps if the country will ever return to single-digit inflation figures as we experienced until 2016. From the My 12 International Market here in Lagos, Kelly Egiga, Channels Television News.
In a fresh move to sanitize its solid minerals sector, the governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has warned traditional rulers and community leaders in the state against issuing consent letters to miners and other investors without approval from the state government. Governor Bello stated this in Lokoja, the state capital, during a stakeholders enlightenment meeting with traditional rulers across the state.
The issue of illegal miners and mining without reclaiming the land is becoming a worrisome trend, as some communities in the Eastern Senatorial District of Kogi State, where coal and other minerals are being mined, are left in a state of devastation without roads, water and schools, while the people live in abject poverty. This meeting, organized by the Ministry of Solid Minerals and Natural Resources in Kogi State, is aimed at sensitizing traditional rulers and equipping them with information on handling issues that concern the release of consent letters to mining companies.
Despite the outcry from the host communities, most mining investors had failed to provide an alternate solution to this agreement and therefore had defaulted in environmental obligations in the areas of potable water supply, electricity supply, healthcare service delivery, school facilities, road construction, and reclaiming of farmland.
The spokesman of the traditional rulers appreciates the government for the sensitization, as they promise to abide by all government regulations.
I've not seen any mining company that has built any secondary school anywhere in Kogi State. I've not seen anyone that has built hospitals or road or whatever. And I think this conference will open our eyes and we become more knowledgeable in what to do and what not to do.
In his keynote address, Governor Bello solicited greater partnership in curbing degradation.
We are aware recently that the federal government even revoked some of those licenses that were not utilized by some portfolio investors. Federal government came up about and completely revoked them and banned illegal mining. We came about and equally reiterate that ban on illegal mining.
The governor also stated that illegal mining operations and other criminal activities are being linked to individuals and organizations who circumvent established procedures in getting consent letters for mining operations.
Any consent that is existing so far, from the biggest investor here in Kogi State to the intending investors, all that are existing now shall be reviewed. All community development agreements that are existing now shall equally be reviewed.
As the final countdown of the governor's exit from Lugard House begins, leaving Kogi State better than he met it remains his top priority.
In Adama State, Governor Umar Fintiri has reiterated his commitment towards ensuring that education continues to remain topmost priority of his administration. The governor gave this assurance during the distribution of instructional materials to students of special schools in Yola, where he describes education as a weapon for the fight against poverty, insecurity, and other vices, and a tool for empowering the people.
It is the symbolic flag off of the distribution of instructional materials by the Adama State government in collaboration with the Global Partnership for Education and other development partners.
Congratulations.
The items distributed include motorcycles for monitoring and evaluation of schools, tricycles, computers, teaching aids for the blind, and other items. Speaking at the event, Governor Umar Fintiri, who was represented by the Commissioner for Education, reiterates the government's resolve to address educational challenges of people with disabilities.
This appropriation is not just a theoretical appropriation. It's going to be backed by practice. And by practice, I mean, while we do this appropriation, this allocation based on the needs of the sector, we shall, by the permission of the resources, ensure that we back it with implementation.
The Monitoring and Evaluation Officer of GPE and a teacher highlights the impact of the intervention.
With these wheelchairs that are being provided to them today, definitely time, which is of essence, will make these children get to school early and also receive lectures as due.
I have to trek for 3 hours before reaching the by primary school. So for this motorcycle, I will be able to maybe reach for 30 minutes.
The State Ministry of Education, as part of its GPE project, is equally conducting a capacity building program for members of the Schools-Based Management Committee in selected schools in Adama State.
We need to train them on how to manage resources, how to improve the disbursements, all right, or the intervention funds that will come from their state's subet to them, and how to use it judiciously so that they can be construction of infrastructure in all these selected states and schools.
With the partnership, the state government assures that it will continue to provide the required investment in the education sector in order to impact the people positively.
In the fight to rid Nigeria of illicit drug trafficking and dealing, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the NDLEA, have intercepted consignments of cocaine and Colorado, which is a strong strain of cannabis. The illicit substances were intercepted at the Tinkan seaport in Lagos and were concealed in containerized household items and vehicles imported from Durban, South Africa and Canada. In a related development, 2 freight agents and a traveler narrowly escaped being roped into drug trafficking operations after submitting the shipment to NDLEA checks at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. In Kano, 3 suspects have been arrested with more than 5,700,000 pills of tramadol, 250 milligram, and Exol 5. And in the Ojodu Berger area of Lagos, NDLEA operatives have arrested 2 suspects with 110 kilograms of cannabis sativa, while 69 kilograms of the substance was recovered from the hideout of a fleeing suspect in Akirele, Surulere of Lagos State. Welcome to Sports News. Tanzania's hopes of a first Africa Cup of Nations win after 44 years were dashed when 10-man Zambia snatched a late 1-1 draw in Group F in San Pedro earlier this evening. Now, Simon Msuva scored after 11 minutes for the Tanzanians, but Zambia overcame the red card of Captain Roderick Kabwe before halftime to equalize on 88 minutes through their star player Patson Daka. Tanzania were coached by caretaker Hamed Suleiman after Adel Abrouche was suspended by the Confederation of African Football for 8 matches and then fired by the Tanzanian Football Federation. The Atlas Lions of Morocco will have to wait to clinch a place in the last 16 of the ongoing AFCON after being held to a 1-0 draw by the DR Congo earlier today, with Silas Mvupa earning the Leopards a deserved draw. Ashraf Hakimi had given heavily fancied Morocco an early lead in San Pedro in the southwestern corner of Côte d'Ivoire, and Cedric Bakambu missed a penalty for the Congolese before the interval. But then substitute Silas swept home the equalizer on 76 minutes to ensure a share of the spoils. Super Eagles coach Jose Peseiro says despite looking good for a spot in the round of 16, Nigeria will not take their feet off the pedal when they clash with Guinea-Bissau on Monday evening. Peseiro will lead Nigeria to come face-to-face with the only team to have beaten his Super Eagles in a competitive match since he took the reins of the 3-time African champions some 20 months ago. Monday's crucial game, which will be the 3-time African champions' 100th match at the AFCON since a group phase encounter against Egypt in Ghana of 1963, will see the Eagles finish top of Group A with a win, as long as Equatorial Guinea, also on 4 points, do not humiliate the host nation, Côte d'Ivoire. At the Australian Open, top seed Novak Djokovic moved into the quarter-finals, thrashing 20th seed Adrian Manarino 6-0, 6-0, 6-3. Now Djokovic, chasing a record 25th Grand Slam title, claimed the dominant win in 1 hour and 44 minutes. Now the 36-year-old will face 12th seed Taylor Fritz in the quarterfinal stage after the American beat last year's finalist Stefanos Tsitsipas 7-6, 5-7, 6-3, 6-3 in over 3 hours. Nigeria's relations with India has come a long way even before Nigeria's independence and has strengthened over the years. This was reiterated by the Indian Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, who is making his first visit to the country, Nigeria. Mr. Jaishankar gave a lecture at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos titled Resetting the Global Agenda, the Role of India and Global South. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Amarachi Ubani reports.
The Indian Foreign Minister's visit was a special one at the NIIA Ultra-Modern Conference Chamber, as not just members of his delegation, but members of the diplomatic corps, political analysts, traditional rulers, members and fellows of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs settled in for a lecture. Chairing the occasion was former Nigerian External Affairs Minister Professor Bolaji Akiyemi and the Director General of the Institute.
We are resetting the global agenda.
Mr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar began his address by extolling relations between Nigeria and India, and even the NIIA.
Our annual trade fluctuates between $12 to $15 billion, and quite rightfully, we have today a relationship that we characterize as a strategic partnership.
He blames globalization for deep economic concentrations, as much of the world depends on production by a few geographies.
Now, while globalization has had many positive results, it has also undeniably led to very deep economic concentrations. That much of the world today depends on production of a few geographies. Now, it worked when we believed that the entire world could be run in the manner in which Japanese cars are produced in Nagoya, that everything came just in time to meet the requirements of the day. We were wrong, but we didn't know it. And then COVID came. And COVID brought home to every one of us that the most basic things of our life, we were often dependent on suppliers and producers from far away.
He was later bombarded with questions from across the hall, ranging from economic to political issues. During his visit to Nigeria, Mr. Jai Shankar will be co-chairing the 6th India-Nigeria Joint Commission meeting with his Nigerian counterpart and inaugurating the 3rd edition of the Nigeria-India Business Council meeting. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 25,000 people have now been killed in Gaza since the Israeli offensive began after the Hamas attack of October the 7th. It explains that there have been 178 deaths in the last 24 hours, making it one of the deadliest days in the war so far. Israel's air and ground operation is currently focusing on southern Gaza, where the military are convinced top Hamas commanders are holed up in or beneath the city of Khan Yunis. U.S. intelligence agencies reportedly estimate that the Israeli military has killed 20 to 30% of Hamas fighters, which falls short of Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu's stated aim of completely destroying the armed group. And the main news again. The Federal Capital Territory Police Command Anti-Kidnapping Squad, in collaboration with troops of the Nigerian Army, have rescued the victims of a kidnap incident in the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. The security operatives say they have successfully rescued 5 sisters who were held hostage after being kidnapped earlier in the month. And of course, we also told you that Ogun, Nasarawa and Plateau State governors have been celebrating their victories of the Supreme Court with commitments to do more for their various states. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. You have yourselves a wonderful night and stay safe.